And we are here. Hello, Latah County. This is Latah 411. My name is Gina.
I'm Alicia.
And we are here to show you the really awesome businesses and business people in Latah County. With us today is Ellis Eifert, one of my favorite grown-ups. Look at him in his buttoned-up shirt and everything. He is the principal, and those mean a lot more than you think right now. We'll talk about that in a minute, those moves. Ellis is the principal in Eifert Law, and he is awesome. So Ellis, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. We're so happy to be here. This is fun.
Awesome. I'm excited to be here too.
Good. We brought you here because we believe that Eifert Law has a lot to bring, but I also want to know about you. And I know some really cool things about you. So if you don't hit them all, I'm going to throw them in at the end.
All right.
But tell me about you as a human, please.
Me as a human. So I grew up in Mississippi. My family's been there for a very long time. I'm a thousandth generation in Mississippi, and I don't know how far back. It goes back before we were a state even. Anyway, but I came out here for college and ended up, I love the Northwest. I've always loved the mountains and rivers. I love to ski, backpack, fish, hunt, raft, everything.
Wow.
So I definitely fell in love with the area out here. I met my wife out here, Hope. She and I were both in college at the time. We're both East Coast expats. She's from South Carolina. She actually grew up pretty close to where my mom grew up. My mom's from Western North Carolina. So we ended up out here, went to college. My wife's family actually moved out here to Moscow in 2007, 2008. And we graduated from college. Hope and I were in the same class. We graduated at the same time. We went back east, went to law school, and then moved back out here in 2011. And we've been here ever since. We come back during the summers. My folks actually relocated to Central Washington.
Oh.
They live out in Wenatchee, Washington. And so I did a couple of clerkships while I was in law school out there for the Chelan County Superior Court. And I worked for one of my buddies' dad, Bill Manette, who's an attorney. He actually just retired. But I worked for Bill for one summer. But yeah, then we came back out here. I took the bar exam. Unfortunately, in 2011, it was the worst year. I believe, according to the American Bar Association, it was like the worst year for hiring for law students because the financial crisis happened and there were some residual effects that kind of reverberated for the next few years. So I didn't want to start a firm on my own at the time. So I actually ended up working as a financial advisor for a few years. What I do now, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more, is I do estate planning and business law. Yeah. And so and that was always an interest of mine when I was in law school. That's what I wanted to do. And so financial advising worked really well for it. They went in hand in hand pretty well. And it was something I was interested in. I'm really glad I did it. It was very helpful. It gave me a lot of knowledge and experience that's very helpful to what I do now, honestly. If for no other reason as I can understand the concept and talk the language that a lot of financial advisors do, which are people I work with a lot because we're dealing with people's assets. But yeah, I've got four kids. Brody is my oldest. He's 10. I'm gonna get these ages wrong. And I know I'm gonna get them wrong. He's 10. Lila is going to be 8 in October.
Okay.
My other daughter, Charlotte, will be 6 in September. Don't hold me to these. And then we've got a newborn, Summer, and she's 3 months old. And she's very blonde, very blue-eyed, which is not like me or my wife. Actually, three of our kids are blonde. 2 of them are blue-eyed, and my daughter Lila is the only one who's got mine and my wife's coloring. But
they are the cutest babies, and
yeah,
they look like each other. So
they do.
they could totally deny their parents, or at least 3 of them can. But
Three of them
boy, I
can.
tell you, amongst the crowd, they look so much like each other. It's just not
Yeah.
even funny. Cute little,
Oh
and
yeah.
sweet. They're sweet little babies.
Yeah.
They're very respectful and make good eye contact, you know, and they're good.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job with them.
They like to talk like me. So.
I wonder where they get that from.
I don't know.
So you said, now I think you made a good point a minute ago, and I want to agree and support what you said about the estate planning financial planner synergy there. I have a financial planner, and we're starting to look at retirement and, you know, how we structure things. And her statement, as much as I love her, her statement to me is, you need an estate lawyer.
Yeah.
And I think, boy, it'd be great to have both in the same. Yep, exactly. I know where I'm coming. I get to hold the baby though.
Yeah, you can hold, yeah. You can hold her as long as you want. If you want a babysitter, you can make that happen.
So tell me, let's see, you chose Moscow, and I heard the or Latah County. I heard the transition there. I think there is a bit of a lack of approachable estate lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw that out there. Tell me your experience with that, and yeah, build on that for me.
You know, so I mean, so for me, when I started practicing, I ended up, so I worked as a financial advisor for 3 years, and I worked a little bit after that as well. I worked until, I don't know, 2015, I think, kind of on the side.
Yeah.
But when I started my firm, I wanted it to be a specific firm. I didn't want to be a general practice attorney. In small towns, that's often what happens. And I understand the necessity, and I understand why people do that. I'm not faulting anyone for doing that. I didn't want to do that. But it is difficult to get going. And the reason, so going back to talking about why I understand why other attorneys, you practice family law, you practice criminal law, you do real estate litigation, you do probate, you do guardianships, you do estate planning, you do LLC formation, you do lien stripping, you do creditors. I mean, the list of bankruptcy is a little bit, I think bankruptcy is another one where actually you have people that kind of focus on that.
Yeah.
Ray Barker does a lot of bankruptcy, and I think I know he does other stuff too, but I think a lot of what he does is bankruptcy. That's generally, if I have someone who's got a bankruptcy issue, I'll send them over to Ray. Yeah. I know he's getting close to retiring as well, but it's difficult in a small town because you have to develop a client base to support yourself. And if you're in a fairly niche area, which I am, and I mean, I'm not limited to simply estate planning. I do a lot of business planning and business formation as well. And I do real estate transactions as well. I don't do as much real estate work. Most of the real estate work I do is honestly within the ecosystem of either a business or an estate issue. So if we're transferring property to a trust or out of a trust, or transferring property during a probate after someone's passed away.
Yeah.
Or I've got a business client who part of what they do is buying and selling real estate, and they know what they're going to do. They work out the deal and they want me to put it in writing. Yeah. But it's difficult, especially when you start, because this is I definitely ran into this when I started practicing. It's very slow. And I know some people are really good at marketing and they can ramp stuff up, and there's a lot of resources out there. I'll be honest, I'm not the best marketer in a sense. I don't have a natural bent towards producing tons of flashy content. I try and provide helpful content because I think part of what my job is to assist people. So if I can provide a helpful content to you, I'll do that. But when you're in a small town and you hang up your shingle, which is what I ended up doing as a solo, it could be very tempting. And I succumbed to that temptation to take a family law case or a criminal case, or some cases a little bit outside of even what you want to do.
Yeah.
And once that happens, I mean, it's also a small town. People say, oh, hey, I saw so-and-so for my custody case, or I got a DUI and this guy helped me out, or whatever the case may be. And then you get more people coming to you, and you're still doing front door law, as it's called, and you just get lots of people coming in. And then before you know it, it's a little bit harder to specialize than you thought, and you don't want to turn away paying work. And once you get a pipeline of work, it's harder to turn that away once you're established. So that was a big difficulty, and I think that's why a lot of people in small towns, including here, have a broad practice base. The issue that I saw with that is the practice of law is incredibly complex, and if you practice in 20 different areas, well, I mean, obviously you only have so much space in your brain. You only have so much time. So there's only so much you can understand.
Yeah.
And estate planning is a very deep field in and of itself. I mean, you've got your basic setting up a will or setting up a revocable living trust. And you've got special needs trust. Say you've got a child who's got some disabilities that are going to go on, throughout their life. And so, you get a guardianship and you want to set up a special needs trust to provide for them. You have Medicaid planning, medical costs. It can be, unconscionable sometimes. That's a different discussion. But you can do Medicaid either crisis planning or pre-planning for your estate. And that's a part of estate planning. You can start looking ahead to protecting your assets for your kids and being able to take advantage of Medicaid. You've got tax planning. It's not as much of an issue now because the estate tax exemption is so high, but you use irrevocable trusts and strategies for that. You've got personality issues. You've got family dynamics that you got to deal with planning. And so even just that, and then you've got probate on top of that and trust administration when someone passes away. So there's already many different areas, and people even in a lot of bigger places will focus in even just on one area alone. In that. And so if you have and every area of law is like that. Tim Gressback, who I share office space with him now. Tim's a phenomenal trial attorney. He's a phenomenal trial attorney, and he's done a lot of stuff in the past. But now I know he focuses on personal injury, and he's very good at it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what he focuses on these days is personal injury. And Tim's, he developed a niche there, and so he's able to bring a lot of experience in his time and focus on that. And that's what I'm trying to do with estate planning and business law at the same time. So trying to just be able to be, able to go deeper and help someone plan better. Because anyone can draft a will. You can get online and you can draft a will. Anyone can do it. You don't need any special training. It doesn't mean that it's going to be good. And that's the issue, I guess. And so I'm being very long-winded here, but that was the reason I wanted to focus in on an area of law and not end up doing a bunch of other things. Now, I've had a number of experiences in other areas that have all been helpful. I don't want to say that it's necessarily a bad thing not to do other stuff. My background in financial planning has been very helpful.
Exactly.
But part of that is because that's a field that dovetails very nicely with estate planning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've had some experiences in family law and litigation, and that actually has provided some insight that's been helpful I hated doing it. I hate doing family law, and I think it's not for me. Some people do it. Some people are really good at it, but I don't have the stomach for it, I guess.
Yeah.
But it still has provided some helpful insights when I practice, and even jobs I worked before. I worked as a machinist at a factory that built loppers and orchard equipment in central Washington, Wenatchee.
Oh.
I worked there. I worked for the Forest Service. I worked in agriculture. I worked on a farm all growing up, and all of those experiences have been helpful, both in estate planning and the business realm, because you get to understand a bit of what goes on in a business. What the challenges are. Knowledge that certain industries have regulatory issues, things like that. So
Well,
I think everything's been helpful.
I really appreciate what you're saying, because in those moments where you need to start thinking about your own mortality,
Mm-hmm.
I
Not fun.
I hate the whole concept. In my mind, there's a long future ahead of me, but to have someone who chooses to be an expert in the kind of planning and the kind of legal formation of what I leave behind, that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. And I understand the slow nature of it at times, I do, but I thank you for being as focused
Yes.
as you are, because I think that's critical, and especially with, I'm not gonna, well, maybe I'll die a trillionaire, but the nature of the beast is the bigger the mess you get to deal with. But having that
Yeah.
put in some sort of a form that my two children don't end up hating each other over things like that, so
money causes problems, and I can't tell you how many times I've had people come into my office and say, well, they'll be fine, they'll figure it out, they get along great. And I'll say, yeah, they get along great now, but what happens when there's 500 grand on the line? Well, that changes things. People aren't quite so altruistic anymore when there's that much money. And people start bringing up stuff about how mom liked me better, or dad wanted this. And and if you have a super basic plan, and that could be, you can avoid that by being very specific in how you set your plan up to avoid that. It's people tend to overestimate. This sounds really depressing, but people always overestimate how good people are. Unfortunately, I think. I've got a friend who his view is most people are just bad. That's a bit of a depressing view, and I don't personally ascribe to that extent, but I do think that people underestimate how, when something's thrown in the mix, like money or some sort of hardship, you overestimate how well people can behave.
Yeah.
That's been a common theme throughout my practice, and probably, honestly, any attorney in any area, unfortunately.
I would say too that if you throw masks into a situation, people don't act nice either.
No, they don't.
A little political humor for you.
They don't act. Yeah.
Yeah, the days of COVID are upon us.
I'm not touching that, all right?
Good, look at you. So talk to me, let's go to the business law side. Tell me what you think is the best form for, say I'm new. I wanna open up my own guitar store. What form of business should I use in your opinion? It's me, and I'm gonna take Todd's nest egg and go put it into a guitar business.
Nice. So it depends. It's the classic attorney answer. However, I would say in your scenario, it depends on the scenario. In the scenario you described, I would tend to think an LLC. Now, I used to be very gung-ho on LLCs. I said you should always do an LLC. There's almost never a reason not to.
Yeah.
I wasn't as big on S-Corps. I've since changed my mind on that a little bit. I think that in your situation, I'm assuming it'll be you'll probably be there you would probably be there most of the time.
Yeah.
You'd be the one someone sees when they come in. You would be the one handling the register. You'd be the one talking with them about the guitar. Maybe you might even be the one doing repairs. You'll be probably maybe outsourcing the books, but probably doing the books maybe. You'll be handling everything. You'll be handling everything. And so I think in that case, it makes sense to probably have an LLC. The reason for that is it's a more flexible entity. So what I mean by that is if you used an S-Corp, and we'll leave C-Corp out of this because I really think C-Corps make sense for very large scale businesses, or if you're trying to raise a lot of funding, trying to get like an angel investor or venture capital, C-Corps make sense there. Okay. But we'll leave that out of the discussion. It normally comes down to an S-Corp or an LLC.
Okay.
In an S-Corp, there's lots of restrictions. So there's restrictions on the number of shareholders you can have. It's, don't quote me, but it was 100. It might have changed recently, but
okay.
They have to be actual people. In a corporation or an LLC, in a C-Corp or an LLC, you can have another business entity be a member or a shareholder.
Okay.
In S-Corp, you can't do that with a couple of exceptions, such as like a revocable living trust. And there's a couple of exceptions that don't really come into play. You have to keep minutes. You have to abide by a lot of corporate formalities, because if you don't, you're going to be forfeiting your liability protection that the business gives you. And in LLC, you can say, we're opting to not have annual meetings. We're opting to not keep minutes. We'll have a process. If we call a meeting, but you can just kind of do your thing, and it's a lot easier. You get the flow through taxation, which isn't awesome, but there is some tax legislation that's come down recently that helps with that. The S-Corp does have tax benefits depending on your size. So I had an accountant explain it to me this way, and this is kind of what changed my mind about it, as he says, I'll look to start turning a business into an S-Corp to get tax benefits for my client when either you don't have to be the one who's there every day running it. So say you're the owner, you've got a general manager, or you've got a manager who runs the day-to-day, you've got someone who's handling bookkeeping, you've got people that are there at front running the cash register, talking with customers, you have someone in the back handling, you've got employees, and you've got people in a structure. And then at that point, you can start to take advantage of some of the employment tax benefits that you can get from an S-Corp, characterizing income as passive income so you don't have to pay self-employment, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds on that, which I already have. But I would say for your average person who's starting up a business at the start, go with an LLC. Yeah. You can either change the entity or change the tax filing to an S-Corp later on. So it doesn't really hurt you to start as an LLC unless you already have the infrastructure in place to support an S-Corp. Okay. So, yeah, I'd say LLC most of the time, but I do think S-Corps are very helpful in a lot of situations.
That makes me feel better, Ellis, because normally when I do my business work out in the outlying communities and somebody says they want to start a business, my usual recommendation is an LLC because of the limited liability there, and that they, if something really bad happens, it's very limited. But it is awesome to hear you support that, practicing law without a license but I want to tell the viewers, go back about 7 minutes in this conversation and listen again to why you need to talk to this man. He is an expert, and he is someone that I believe will be of great use to your business. Wow, Ellis, you make it seem approachable, and that's
good.
For law, that's a big moment.
Yeah, it's fine if you think this stuff is boring, because it can be. So
I'm telling you, if you suggest I have to do math one more time, I'm out. I don't want to do the books. That is Mindy. Mindy Davis is my answer to the books.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, do you want to ask Ellis a question instead of letting me dominate the whole world?
Who do you suggest estate planning for? You know, should you wait for kids, or should you do it when you're younger? Should you do it when you're older? What's your advice on that?
You know, honestly, I would recommend you start handling at least some of the estate planning documents as soon as you turn 18. And so maybe a will, maybe not. You can probably get away with not having a will if you're 18. There, you know, more than likely you're not gonna. I didn't have anything when I was 18. I had an old truck, and that was the extent of my, and then like a couple of guns and some clothes. I was like, pretty much that's all I had.
The essentials.
Yeah, yeah. I think I had like a mount. I had my mountain bike and some skis and some camping gear. But I mean,
that is essential.
How much was it worth? I don't know. I could fit it all in the back. I could fit all of my possessions in the back of my truck super easily. You know, when I was 18 until I was married, I think. So you could probably leave a will out of it. I mean, that's going to go to your parents in intestate succession. But the documents I think you really need to have when you turn 18 are your powers of attorney and a living will / advance directive. Because when you turn 18, your parents can't make decisions for you. They're not authorized to sign anything. They're not really supposed to talk to the doctors if you're in the hospital, which is where a HIPAA release comes in handy. And when you're 18, and I mean, this is a law school story that gets thrown around, and obviously it's the worst case scenario, but it does happen. There was this girl who was, I believe she was 19, maybe 20, and she was in college, and she was in a car accident, and she was in a coma, and it was an irreversible coma, which according to state statutes, and you know, it's in all state statutes essentially, that's the point where you're legally allowed to remove life support. Well, first of all, she didn't have any powers of attorney. And second, she didn't have an advance directive. So what are they supposed to do? Well, they had to go to court. That's what they have to do. You have to get a judge to sign off on that stuff. So, you know, she was 19. I mean, you still have this idea. I mean, when you're 18, you're still a kid. You know, when you're 19, you're still a kid. When you're 20, you're still a kid. But legally, you're not. Legally, you're an adult, and you have to grant someone authority to be able to make decisions on your behalf. And you need to lay out instructions for removing life support. So I mean, my sister-in-law, I got her, like, her birthday present was, I was like, I'm going to do you an estate plan. She's like, thanks, that's boring. But when you turn 18, I was like, I'm sorry, that's what I'm going to do. She's like, it's probably good, but that's like the most boring gift I've ever gotten. But I'd say right away.
Quick.
I'd say once you get married, you definitely need to have a will. And I don't think you need to wait for kids. But I think you need to have a will. You can also think of it in this way. It's kind of a stair-step situation. Say you turn 18, you should definitely get your powers of attorney. You should get a living will. If you want to get a will, fine, get one. It's not a problem to get one. It's not difficult. You know, get those. When you get married, definitely make sure you've got your power of attorney, you've got your will. Make sure you have that. When you have kids, well, then you're going to want to update that plan. You're going to want to appoint guardians. And when you get a bit older and you've accumulated some wealth, you know, say now you've gone through school, potentially grad school, you've had a good job, your kids are starting to get into high school, you're starting to do some college saving for them, you're doing retirement saving, you're getting close to maybe paying down your house, maybe not, but you're accumulating wealth. You've got a life insurance policy.
Right.
You've got a life insurance policy that's worth a lot of money. You know, a lot of times, you know, $800 to $1.5 million is pretty common for a term, like a 20-year term life insurance policy.
Wow.
So if you die, all of a sudden you might have an estate in excess of $2 million. So maybe you should start thinking about a trust at that point. That might be a good time to start exploring, you know, a simple trust, a revocable living trust. Then say you go, your kids are older, you're getting older, you're in your, you know, as I say older now, I'm getting close to this, but you're in your early 40s. Maybe you should start thinking about, you know, revamping that plan. Then you start getting into your 50s, maybe you should start thinking about Medicaid pre-planning. Maybe a little bit older. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Medicaid pre-planning is just so that you could have stuff taken care of. So when you're older, if you're in a long-term care issue, you have that protected. But it's kind of a stair-step thing. And obviously it changes depending on your situation. You know, most people, that's kind of a general trajectory for most people. Some people might make a lot more money faster. Maybe you got family wealth. Maybe you've inherited a lot of money from a parent dying prematurely. You know, and all of those will make the process a little different. But I think that the time when you need to get an estate plan is as soon as you turn 18. But that plan is going to change as you go forward and get older and your life circumstances changes. And you want that plan to change along with those life circumstances and stages that you're in.
Sounds like I'm a couple decades behind on my planning. So
yeah, a lot of people are. Little dirty little secret. You know, it's the classic. The cobbler's kids have no shoes. I was practicing estate planning attorney, and I didn't have one for way too long. I have one now. I've got it all set up, but like, it was like, why don't I'm drafting these for other people? Why don't I have one? So, yeah.
So
Even the best of us.
well, that makes me feel better. I will tell you that we're kind of a part of the way through ours. And it all changed about 4 years ago. We started buying into our business. And so now, you know, now we would have a wrinkle anyway.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm thinking next time we need a little bit of adult beverage for these events, because I think I fell into the old category a moment ago, Ellis. Thank you very much. But I want to do your parting moment here.
Yeah.
I want you to be your older self, maybe 55 or 56, just saying, somewhere around that old zone, and tell the young you what you
want the midlife crisis me? Is that what you're saying?
I want you to give your business wisdom to your younger self. Turn around and say, this is what I would do if I, yeah. You know what I would say, actually, and part of this was just I didn't have the ability to have this given the circumstances at the time. But I would say, you know, don't necessarily feel like you have to rush into doing your own business. I didn't actually want to start my own business right away. I was very much opposed to doing it, actually, because when you get out of law school, I mean, you learn a lot of stuff in law school, but you don't learn as much about actually practicing law, unfortunately, which I think is an issue that's systemic in the legal education realm. But what I'd say is, and I've seen this for me, and so I'm speaking from personal experience, but I've also seen it for other people that I've either worked with or observed, is I think a lot of times people run into opening up a business, especially in a field that's more complex. It's not like you can just open up a business. I mean, first of all, running a business is difficult, just the logistics, not even what you're good at, but even the skills necessary to do what you're offering. A lot of times people run into that and they want to run on their own business, they want to do their thing, and they're not really prepared. They don't have the experience necessary. And so it's not an issue. It's not a bad thing to spend a few years working for someone else, working at different jobs and trying and getting a feel for either what exactly you want to do, or just getting
experience in fields that relate to what you do, or jobs that relate to like what you want to do. So you build up that experience and knowledge before you open your business. Because if you open up your business, you're trying to run your business, and you're also trying in a field that's as complex as something like law or accounting, or there's plenty of fields that require a lot of complex, the ability to break down complex problems.
Right.
If you don't have the know-how, or don't have enough know-how, and you're trying to figure out, I need to get secure office space. I need to figure out how I'm going to run my books. I need to figure out marketing. I need to have maybe a compliance component to my business to comply with any regulations. You're trying to juggle all of that. Maybe you get employees. That's a full day's work right there. And then if you're like, well, then I get this case walks to the door and I have no idea how to handle it. Well, you might not handle it very well. And so I would say, don't feel like you need to rush into starting your own business. Get the experience you need in either working for someone else, other places, before you jump into it. That was my ideal. I was able to do that to a certain extent, working some other jobs. But when I started, it was just difficult to find jobs as an attorney, especially as a law student. They didn't want someone like me. I didn't know what I was doing. The market was flooded with guys who've had 3 to 6 years experience. That's a no-brainer. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They didn't have the time or money to invest in me like they'd done before with law student grads. Yeah. Don't rush it, I guess, is what I'd say. Get experience. Get experience first, so you can actually serve your client, because that's what we're here to do ultimately.
Yep.
So, Ellis, tell me about your webcast, tell me your email and your website, all of that good stuff. Phone number.
Yeah, so my email is Ellis, that's ELLIS, at eifertlaw.com. And Eifert is spelled EIFERT. My website's eifertlaw.com. You can find me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can check out my website. I've got a newsletter that you can sign up that I send out monthly. I try and keep up. I try and deal with a specific area each month. I've got a lot of free resources on my website as well. Checklists, quick resources for learning a bit more about the process, and then I've got a blog that's listed on there. And there's also some videos of me sitting in front of a bunch of old books.
Talking. Those are interesting.
But yeah, you can sign up for my newsletter on there, and you'll get an email once a month with kind of a fair amount of content. And I'm on LinkedIn.
Quite possibly the best newsletter I spend time reading. I think it's
mine?
A good 15, 20-minute investment every time. I know, you should be happy. So on your way out today, thank you, first of all, for your time. And Lake County, this is your guy right here. He's your expert for estate law and planning. And what did you say? You said power of attorney, living will. What was the other?
A will. So you've got two different types of powers of attorney. One for healthcare, one for finances. Your living will, which is your healthcare directive, and your last will and testament. Those are the building blocks. You have to have those. And whatever position you're in, I'd say those are the foundational documents.
I think we need to have you back on, maybe to have a mini seminar on each one of those building blocks, because that would be, I hear them and I recognize the phrases, but I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So on your way out today, I want you to tell us a little bit about the little thing that you didn't say about yourself, about the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu craziness. Tell me about that.
I'm a combat sports enthusiast. I was a boxer in high school, and I am currently a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu fanatic. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu is not karate. I want to be very clear about that. I think karate is awesome. I'm not hating on karate except for the like McDojo karate where they give you just do point sparring and you can pay and get a belt and all that BS. Anyway, it's a grappling martial art. So think of it as a little bit similar to wrestling, but with submission holds. So joint locks, choke holds. It's a grappling sport. So you're grappling. So it's kind of like it's fairly different than wrestling. And I'm also a very big amateur wrestling fan. I'm not a pro WWE fan. I've never been a fan of that.
Oh.
I know. I'm from the South. You would think.
I'm like, wait a minute, Hulk Hogan.
I know. I'm not a big, but amateur wrestling. So like high school and collegiate wrestling, I'm a very big fan of that. I think it's an incredible sport. But yeah, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So you do it with a gi or not a gi. I just actually came from training. So it's one of my favorite things to do.
Oh, awesome.
It's a great sport. Check out V7 Martial Arts, Nikolai Curry, fantastic instructor, world-class judo, Olympic alternate for Brazil, 2 years. He has his third-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He was a professional MMA fighter at American Top Team and the Black Zillions. As world-class a trainer as possible. We also have John Saltarella, who many of you probably know from Apex. Apex. Inspection. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He's a boxing coach there. He's our boxing coach. Fantastic boxer. He was in Shane Mosley's camp when Shane Mosley was training for World Championship. He was actually being groomed to fight Oscar De La Hoya until he got injured. So fantastic boxer. Extremely high level training there. My buddy Steve Van Gerpen is one of the black belts. I was just training with him. Really good black belt. And then a bunch of killers. So really also very welcoming. It's a great place for your kids as well.
It is.
They have an excellent kids program. Gloria, who runs that, is a fantastic teacher. So really welcoming atmosphere. If you don't want to, I like to train hard, and you can do that. If you don't want to train hard, that's not a problem. I mean, it's kind of for everyone.
What color is your belt?
I'm a blue belt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm working towards the purple. I'm getting close, hopefully. But yeah, it's fun. I love it.
Wow. That's cool. This has been so much fun. I could just keep going for like 3 hours, and you'd be out of time and money at that point. So again, EifertLaw.com.
Yep.
And Ellis Eifert, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
Well, I'm serious about those building blocks. We may need to come up with a plan for that, because it's really important, and it's a scary topic. And if you can make it easy and like you have today, it's definitely a good thing for Latah County. So thank you. Have an awesome weekend. Say hi to those
people. I will. Y'all as well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks again. See you later.
Thank you. See ya.